Okay, great. So let's do some examples with the continue statement. So back in the exercise project, just right-click on the branching package and select New Class. Specify the class name as Continue Statement and select the checkbox for Main Method. So let's use the continue statement in the standard for loop. Now in for loop, we declare a variable I with an initial value 0. Our condition is I is less than 10, and it increments by 1. So if I modulus operator 2 is equal to 0, that means that if I is an even number, we'll use the continue statement to continue the loop. So we'll use the print method to write the numbers to the screen. And let's run the code. And you see the odd numbers in the console. So in this code, if the number is divisible by 2, then it's even. And if it's an even number, then the continue statement is executed. So for this iteration, the execution of the print statement is skipped and control of the program jumps to the end of the loop. The iteration process runs until I is 10, and then when I is 10, the test condition is false and the for loop terminates. Okay, so let's try to use the continue statement in anywhere. Now, let's declare a variable k with the initial value 50. So if k equals 50, we'll try to use the continue statement. But we get an error. Why? Because continue cannot be used outside of a loop. Okay, are you ready for some examples with the return statement? Alrighty then, in the exercise project, right-click on the branching package and select New Class. And specify the class name as return statement and select the checkbox for the main method. So first we use a return statement in the switch case statement. And we'll declare a variable k with the initial value 1. The conditional switch expression is variable k. So we have two case values. First is 1. And if the value of the variable is 1, then we will print 1 to the console. And then we add the break statement. So now let's copy the code and then change the case value. And if the value is 2, then we will print 2 to the console. And then we can add the return statement. And then finally, we'll add the print method after the switch loop to test the statement. So let's run the code. And both of the print methods are executed and the messages are displayed. Now, because break is used to exit a switch statement, the second print method is executed, right? So let's change the value of variable k with 2, and let's run the code. So now only the first method in the second case is executed, and this message is displayed. Because the return statement is used to exit the current method. So the second print method is not executed. Okay, so let's try to use the return statement in anywhere. Let's declare a variable bool with Boolean type. So its initial value is true. And in the print method, we'll write in before the return. So if bool means that the condition is true, then we add the return statement. And then we can add the second print method that includes this statement will not be executed. Let's run the code. Only the first method is executed and the message is displayed, because the compiler ignores every statement after the return in the same method. All right. So yes, we are doing our second project. Now in this project, we will learn a mathematical concept. It's called the Fibonacci series, and we will learn how to implement it in Java. So first, let's create a new Java project and specify the project name as Fibonacci series. Now don't change the other options, just click the next button. So in this section, uncheck create module info.java file, and then press the finish button. So in this project, just right-click on the source folder and select the new and class. Specify the package name as Fibonacci and class name as Fibonacci. And then select the checkbox to add to the main method. Now before coding, let's remember the Fibonacci sequence, review it, or learn it for the first time, depending upon where you're at. The Fibonacci sequence is 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, and it goes and goes and goes and goes. The next number is found by adding up the two numbers before it, right? For example, the next number in the sequence above is 34 plus 55, and that equals 89. I know, you're way ahead of me. I just had to go over it. So let's start to code. First, we'll need to import the scanner class for getting the input from the user. And then we choose the import scanner class in java.util package to import the scanner class. And now we're looking at a message to enter the max sequence number by using the print method. And then we can declare a variable number with the int type, and then assign the next int method of the scanner class to this variable. So let's go ahead and declare three variables with int type. First up, fib previous with initial value as 0. Second up, Fibonacci with initial value set to 1. And last, sum with the initial value 0. Now the variable fib previous represents the first number of the Fibonacci series, and variable Fibonacci represents the second number of the Fibonacci series. Now we can start to write the for loop. So in the for loop, we declare variable I and initialize it, so its initial value is 1. Our test condition is I less than or equal to number, and it increments by 1. Then we use the print method to display the numbers of the Fibonacci series. So we use the variable fib previous for this. So on each iteration, we add first the number fib previous and then the second number Fibonacci and assign this sum to a variable sum. And then we just assign the second number Fibonacci to the first number fib previous. And we assign the sum of the last two numbers to the second number Fibonacci. Okay, so let's run the code And let's enter 10 for max sequence. And you'll see the first 10 numbers of the Fibonacci series in the console. So now let's debug the code. Debugging allows us to run a program interactively while watching the source code and the variables during the execution. So let's put a breakpoint ahead of the print method line in the for loop. Now, in order to define a breakpoint in our source code, right-click on the left margin and select Toggle Breakpoint. So we can also double-click on this position for the same operation. It's up to you. Now, in order to debug our application, we can use the Debug button in the Eclipse toolbar. So let's go ahead and click that Debug button. And let's enter 10 for max sequence. So Eclipse asks us if we want to switch to the debug perspective. So let's click Switch in the dialog window. And see how Eclipse provides debug buttons for controlling the execution of the program? So we have some shortcut keys to step up our code. And let's check the values of the variables in the debug perspective. So we click the Step Over button and display the values of the variables in the variable section. Now, at first, the fib previous is 0. Fibonacci is 1, and the sum is 0. So why don't we click the Step Over button again? No change. Let's click the button again. Variable sum is 1. So we'll click the button again. Variable fib previous is 1. And click the button now 4 times. Variable sum is 2. So let's click the button again. The variable Fibonacci is 2. Let's click the button 3 times. Sum is 3. And click the button again. Variable fib previous is 2. And let's click the button again. Variable Fibonacci is 3. And on it goes just like that. So let's click the Resume button to resume the execution of the program code until it reaches the next breakpoint. And let's click on this button until execution of the program finishes. And now you can see the Fibonacci series in the console. So I think you understand how to debug your code in Eclipse by doing this. It's pretty fun, huh? You can go back and do it again if you like it that much. Methods. So in this section, we will learn some of the methods in Java. First, we will learn what a method is and how to create methods in Java. Then we're going to learn declaration and calling of methods. Then we're going to play with some method types. And of course, we will learn method return types. Then we will learn method overloading. So what is method and method declaration? Method is a set of statements to perform an operation. Methods are also known as procedures or functions. The main advantage of method is code reusability. You can write a method once and use it multiple times. You don't have to rewrite the entire code every time. It's great. You can think of it as write once, reuse multiple times. You see the general form of a method declaration here. Now, a return type is a data type of the value that is returned by the method. So it can be a primitive type such as int, or a class type such as string or void. Now, of course, each method has its own name. So a method name begins with a lowercase letter and compound words. So in multi-word names, the first letter of each of the second and the following words should be capitalized. We'll discuss naming rules for methods in the upcoming lecture. A parameter is a value passed to the method. So methods can take one or more parameters. If the method has more than one parameter, then these parameters are separated by commas. If methods work with data, we must pass the data to the methods. And this is done by specifying them inside parentheses. So if the method does not take any argument, just simply leave the parentheses empty. So if any method is not declared void, then it must contain a return statement with a corresponding return value. The data type of the return value must match the method's declared return type. So in other words, you can't return an integer value from a method declared to return a Boolean. We'll cover method return types later on in the next slide, in fact. So the method body is enclosed between braces. The method body includes declaration of variables as well as other codes of methods. And then finally, in our example, we defined a method that its name is addNumber with the int as its data type. And we have x and y parameters, and our method finds the sum of x and y and saves the result in a new variable sum, and returns the value of the variable sum. So also we can directly return x plus y as a statement instead of assigning a new variable.